Welcome back to another episode with Rabbi Dr. Eliezer Brut. We're back to our originals. Maseches Chulin is starting tomorrow. We're recording this on a Friday. It's close to Shabbos, where Rabbi Brut is in Eretz Yisrael. This will get out after Chulin begins, but towards the beginning of Chulin, running through the history of how Maseches Chulin was learned throughout the generations, Rishonim, Gaonim, and the phenomenal volume of svarim and information that's out there about Maseches Chulin. So, without further ado, Rabbi Brut is going to get started because it's almost Shabbos there. But I want to mention the person dedicating this episode, Shlomo and Aviva Mostovsky, who are dedicating this episode, Le'ilu Nishmas Rav Nachman ben Reb Nosson Mostovsky. His neshama should have an aliyah from all the learning and understanding in Maseches Chulin that will come out from this episode. Without further ado, Rabbi Dr. Eliezer Brut, take it away.
Okay, so I'm also dedicating it. L'zeich Nishmas, my grandfather, Rabbi Aryeh Leib Spitz, who was a Paisika expert in Masechtas Chulin and a Rav Machshir for many years. This was one of the Masechtas that was very close to his heart. So now, Masechtas Chulin, there's just, as I'm going to show, I think it is the most written about Masechta, especially if you focus on the halachic literature, and we'll outline some of it today. First, the obvious question is, why is it all? We've been talking about Kachim. Everyone who's learning Daf Yomi knows we're deep into Zvachim, Menachas, Kachim, and we're going to go back to Kachim. All of a sudden, there's a break. What's going on here? The Rambam already, in his Akdam to Pershim Mishnayos, addresses this question, sort of agav. Once we're talking about Shechita, we get to this. The Shin Gubetzes and Chulin also starts handling it, and then he starts analyzing it very carefully. If that's the case, why does the Masechta not go in order? Okay, anyway. So that is the first Nekuda related to the Masechta. Now, there's an interesting Nekuda with this Masechtas Chulin, which relates to something. Yeah, it basically relates like this. Every certain Masechtas we spoke about, that there was something going, there was some Hanhagas that went on before learning the Masechta, and there was nervousness to learn these Masechtas. We spoke about Masechtas Ma'ikatan, Baba Basra even sometimes. So interesting is, Chulin, there's an old Messiah, Ashkenazi Messiah, in the great Sefer Yosef Eimitz, who was on the Bezdin of the Shlah. So he brings down that people before, the Achen Ra'isi Mekadmoinim, Shakaitim Sheschilu Lilmoid Chulin B'Yeshiva Gazru Tainus. There was a Tainus. Now, he says a reason like this, because people, when you learn, you get very active and one shows how Shechita is on themselves, and Memela, this might cause some type of kitrig in the and that's why they did it. Ukadumani Gamoy Cotton Shemaskirim by Minyani Misa, so Vatainis Yiwale Hamaves Lanetzach. That was what he brings down such a Messiah. Now, what's interesting is that recently there was Ha'aris on the Sefer Yosef Eimitz published. This is from Frankfurt, so there's a Chibur Ha'aris from Yid Chaim Ulma. So he writes that also such a thing that he bringing down from Kizve Kabbalas Arizal to make sure that it's L'Shem Shamayim and it shouldn't be Mekatrigim and stuff like that. He extends it with Yavamis and Baba Basra. Okay, anyway, so this was an Haga that was done by some, and interestingly enough, it seems at least some point in time, the Chassam Sofer, when he would learn Chulin, they were knowing like this. There's testimony in the incredible work of his autobiographical account called the Sefer Zikaron, which interestingly enough, it seems there's been discussion if it was supposed to be printed, should have been printed, how it was printed, but bottom line over there, it records such a thing about fasting before Masechtas Chulin. Now, okay, but the question is, what I believe is a more pashut reason why one would fast before one begins Masechtas Chulin, and that's going to be as follows. The importance of this Masechta and the relevance of this Masechta is remarkable. As I said earlier, it's the most written about Masechta, especially if you focus on halachic literature. There's no end to the amount of works just on Hilchos Shechita and Bedikas, which is the first bunch of blot in this Masechta. And even today, where many people, when they get smicha, So it's easier than the olden days. Olden days, you had to master a crazy amount of your Yeridea, Shchitas, Bedikas, Treifus, all these things. So today, where many people get Smicha do not, but they do have to master Basar Chalv, Terus, and Malicha. And every year, there's multiple works that come out on Basar Chalv, Terus, and Malicha, all types, to help one study it for the tests, and Kitsurim of the Shach and Taz, etc. Now, a large part of your Yeridea is relating to this Masechta. Now, the part of the nakuda of this masechta is our food, the kashrus, everything depending what we eat, which is an integral part of our day. So that's the part of what lies behind in the importance of this masechta. You have to, in order to eat, you have to eat kosher, you have to eat meat or whatever. You have all the aspects of shechita. But furthermore, as the masechta goes on, it goes into other aspects that also relate to it. There's part of relating to shchita, and after you get to the aspects of, besides shchita, there's kisi adam, then there's giranasha, there's hilchos nikor, all these type of aspects. Then the simanim of the animals, which is what already Parsha Shmini is barichos. There's then gets to hilchos basar chalv, taruas malicha, Natilas Yadayim, and many other areas come out. There's also Shluch HaKan and other halachas that come out in this Masechta. So Bekitzer are a very large part of our day-to-day life. When you say, let's say someone makes an argument, Masechta Shabbos is beyond relevant, Lamites Malachas, etc., that's one day a week. This is every day. Now, interestingly enough, there is a work. Oh, no. I messed up. Hold on 1 second. Okay, interestingly enough, one of the Chashiva works on the Masechtas from Rabbi Yaakov Gesundheit, Tiferes Yaakov. So he talks about, in his Hakdama, he already says one of the reasons why he went out of his way. He gave shir, he was a Rav in Varsha, mostly a Maggid shir there. He spent a crazy amount of time because of its relevance. It has almost all of this Heter, he says, Chashchita, Kisi Hadam, what I just listed out, the Chalav Dam, Ever Menachai, Giranasha, etc., etc. So he went and he spent crazy amounts of time to learn it, because this is what it's Nageh Kol Eis V'Kol Rega. And that's why he decided to put out his work on the material, but he didn't just do the halacha. He started with the sugyas. He says he didn't miss a taisvis and chulun that he didn't write about, or with the Rambam, and he gave shir in it for years also. Okay. Anyway, the point is, this is the importance behind this Masechta. The relevance is mamish incredible. Now, in order to become a Rav, one needed to master many parts. It's not simple at all. Lamashal, in the book, which I'm very fond of quoting, written about the Minsker Gadol, who dies in the late 1890s. So it was written by a person who was zeicher to be very close with him. So he writes that when he became Rav of Minsk, which was a huge city, so he came in and he realized he had to revamp all the aspects of the kashrus and to deal with all different things in the sheikhtim and make sure he felt like he's sort of, again, not wasting the words, not wasting his time. He was a yid that didn't want to waste a second not from learning. So it was very hard for him, but it was necessary. But the point is, it was beyond hard. In those days, when you read the history of Kehilas, of becoming a Rav, it's sort of like scary. The amount, forget about Shabbos, forget about all other chalakim of Hilchus, of Dal Chalke Shulchan Aruch. You're a day on a day-to-day basis. You ask questions on all aspects of Shechita, Treifus that came up, mamish lines out the door. Not only that, it also, not only does the lines out the door, it was very negative because of the poverty. So you have to know it on mamish. Any Rav had to know it. So you have to know backwards and forwards. And it's not a small Masechta. As we're going to learn, it's 141 blat. Today we rely on kashrus organizations. Okay, now, so just to throw out there two other ideas, and then we'll move on. First of all, this, in the olden days especially, olden days even before World War II and even after World War II, and even today, Hefset of Mammon comes very much negea, because it plays into general questions of psak, how one paskins. Now, in the small towns and all over Europe, all the centuries, and that's why it was relevant, there was great poverty. So halacha, different aspects had to become. You couldn't always write, you couldn't like send off a picture to a Rav and ask him in a different city who's bigger than you to help out, because it would spoil by then. They didn't have refrigerators and everything. Now, The memoirs that we have are full of sheikhtim or butchers getting upset at the Rav, and they don't like the heter of the Rav. They don't like the Rav. He was too machmir, this, that, and it caused lots and lots of different things. Now, over the years, there were numerous scandals, but not only numerous scandals. Sometimes they were based on certain shittas that different people had. There was unbelievable amount of pulmusin, and they're all totally back to this Masechta Chulin. But in our day, new technology changes it, and we need answers for all these questions. We need to have an understanding of the Metzias. So kashrus organizations are very negeh. You need specialists. This is something I'm very fond of quoting, and I found later on in a haskama of that deres that you need specialists in halacha. There's a concept of, we find already in the times of Tanam Bamaram, there were certain people that they were experts in certain areas, and that's where everyone relied on. And when you learn chulin and ad halacha l'maisa, you see this very much. There's certain svarim that in that area, in Hilchos Shchita, that's the sefer. The guy didn't write anything about Yavamas. He didn't write anything about anything else. We don't even know if he ever learned Yavamas. But he was an expert in that area of Shchita, of Nikur, Trefus, and some of these people, we know nothing about them, and a lot of times that was their expertise. Now, but today, a Rav, but it relates to us today. A Rav, it's not possible for a Rav to be holding in every single aspect of Trefus and Shchita and everything. They rely on other people that are experts. And that's why when people think, it's all about politics and all these types of things, it's not at all about politics. It's about a great necessity. And obviously the question how it came and evolved exactly and all the different aspects is a conversation that needs to be dealt with and researched properly to see how it was. But it's a very big necessity. I just will mention two more Marmakaimis and then we'll move on, is as follows. One is that I have an article that my Rav, Zatzal, Reb Chaim Zev Malinowitz, wrote based on speeches that he gave before I was in the shul about why one needs a Rav and what's the point of a Rav, of kashrus organizations and this type of thing. So it was a six-part piece where he writes very beautifully explaining the importance about it and all the different things. It's especially in Eretz Yisrael, a lot of times it happens that people think a lot of it's about politics, and he wrote up a very beautiful way, and I'm more than happy to share anyone who wishes to have a PDF of this article to read it, how he puts it down in English very eloquently. Now, that's one Maramakam. Another thing is just to throw out there is as I said, Shchita, Trefus, it was a very hot topic. So one such work that deals with mamish, every aspect of the Sheikhet, and controversies in the different hot controversies in Shchita was from a Chashav Yid, Rabbi Yekasil Yehuda Greenwald from Columbus, Ohio, who's famous for writing the work Kolboy on Hilchos Avelos. So he wrote a book called HaSheichev HaShchita B'Safras HaRabbanos. And he says, it's ein l'davar seif how much literature is written on the topic of Shchita. He's not going to attempt to do it over here. And all different things happen. But the point is, you see the amount of literature and the chuvas and everything. So he gives you a lot of the stories and the context of what went on. And when you're learning the Daf Yomi, even if you're learning it in Shitchias, even if you're learning this Masechta this is how the Sefer looks, and even if you're learning the Sefer in a Shitchias, the Gaifen, still you get to see a little bit about the issues. You should be aware of the issues of what's going on. Now, so with all that, it goes back to answering my question. My question is why to fast? The answer is because in those days, it's so chummer. You're taking on yourself something that you want to make sure you have the proper siyata shmaya, that you're learning all about the kashrus aspects. So that was possibly why one wanted to fast.
You're not going to paskin on for someone who is going to listen to this after the Masechta starts, but if you would know about this beforehand, if we should fast on Erev Shabbos, Pesach Sheni, when he's starting to learn Chulin on Shabbos.
I'm not asking that you have to fast. I'm saying that in Haga Taiva, why one might fast. Some cynics might say, when you're learning Daf Yomi, it's not true, whatever. Okay, but anyway, I don't. That's not for me to talk about. Anyway, the point is there's so much happening, and interestingly enough, again, back to this book of the Minsker Gadol, he says that the most literature of Chuvas literature relates to food topics. Now, obviously, some Musar person today would say, because we're so orangutan dachila and the gashmias, but it's not true. It's a very important part of the day-and-day life of people. So it makes sense that, and as I said, it was a lot to do with money also. So it makes sense that there was so much literature written about this over the years. Now, okay, so this is just the first introduction relating to Masechtas Chulin, what we're embarking upon ourselves as we begin to learn this massive Masechta. Now, one thing that comes up in this Masechta, and it changed over time, and now changed again back to Shvach, is as follows. when you learn this Masechta, it cannot be emphasized enough how much one needs to know the simple metzius of what's going on. Now, there are numerous sources about this. Over the years, I mentioned different times some marmakaimis about it. I'm not going to give all the marmakaimis about it, but I'm just here to talk about Masechtas Chulin and the tools out there. And before I begin, is like this. Back to the Sefer the Minsker Gadol. So this book about the Minsker Gadol, he was a Yid, Ilui Shabi Iluyim, sitting and learning, and then he gets a stellar. So what does he do? Before he knew Kol Torah Kula and everything, but he wasn't focused on Lachal Maisa. So before he begins, he goes into the expert dayan, and he says, "I want to sit by you for a few weeks to watch everything." So the dayan's like embarrassed. What do you mean? You're a god? You're a goyim? What is that? What are you going to? It's very scary to sit by me. He goes, "No, you're an expert paisik, hands on. I need to see. I didn't see. I never saw animals. I'm a person sitting and learning." And basically, he got hadracha from this person, and it's very important that there's the when it's an intellectual debate, and then when it becomes a halachic real reality. So he realized now he's becoming a Rav. He's going to have to pass, and he needs to know what's going on. So he went and he sat and he did, and from this he got expertise in basically what we would call in simple English shimush. Shimush, I mean in Hebrew shimush. Okay, but Kitzer, the point is it's a very necessary thing in general. Now, for this Masechta, so Lamashal, there's this very, very interesting autobiography from Yid Friedman. He learned in various yeshivas. And he writes, and at one point in time, he pulled off, he put together, he was expert in Masechtas Chulin, and he wrote on a piece of paper he wrote a picture, he drew up a picture of the animals with the sikum of every single part of the animal and all the shilas and what the psakim are of the paiskim and all different things, like a massive illustrated, so you could see the picture, and then on the picture all the sikum of all the days, and he showed it to the Netziv and Shlomo HaKohen. And they both loved it, and they gave him smicha because of it, and they said he should print it. Chavala was never printed. But the point is, there's something about seeing something, it helps greatly. And one other source for now is this Askama to a Sefer that was written actually on Shechita, but the Sefer itself was never published. From Rav Fried, he published his Tshuva Sefer in 1903 in America, and he got Askama from that Deris. And it seems that in his Sefer on Yeridea, he didn't have enough money, but he got Askama, and Daderis, and it seems over there he made pictures. Daderis writes, it's very important what you did because you helped young Talmidim be able to see the pictures of the animal for Shchitas and Treifas, every Aver, Prat, and it's very helpful, and it helps Ad Halacha Lamaisa, what you did, and I believe very much into this Chibur that you did. And the kids we're not Zeicha to the Sefer, but at least we have that scum of Daderis, seeing that Daderis is also aware of the great importance of such a thing for learning the Masechta. So now, when we go to our Masechta of Chulin, so there's a velt of literature in more. I'm not going to give the exact dates of everything, but one Yid was a Yid who's still alive. He's in his 90s. Kanai Nahar should have continued Ad Mev Esrim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Loewinger, and he's published numerous svarim. He's an expert in all aspects of animal sciences relating to animals, and he wrote, say, for one of them is called Arla Masechtas Chulin, and other Masechtas. He wrote volumes about how food is made and the kashrus of food. He wrote a Madrach on Treifas, on Nikur. He's an expert in all these areas, and some of the works are still available. Other works of his are available on the internet, Hebrew, English, and very, very valuable usage to help one understand the sugyas. It goes through the Masechta a lot of times and again, this has illustrations. It sounds like he writes, at least in one of his Akdamas, some people are upset about the pictures. Okay, fine. Another Yid that he gets incredible Akaras HaTayv from many, many of the Loimdim throughout the years of Masechtas Chulin is a Yid Rav Amitai ben David. So he put out what's considered like the go-to sefer out of Yom called Sichas Chulin on Masechtas Chulin. The edition that just came out is the 16th edition of this sefer. And again, here, he describes basically that he began learning the Masechta, and he started learning it very carefully, the Gemara, Rashi, Taisus, and the Rishonim. And he realized he needed to understand. So he went very carefully to see the Metzias of every aspect. And he wrote up about it, and he drew pictures. and included pictures in this. And till today, I believe there's an edition that's available on Hebrew Books. Till today, it's available, and thousands of Loimdim swear by this book, so to speak, and are very into it. It's very valuable. There's also videos of his even on the internet. I believe he speaks English. And he helped many of the works that came out of Chulin. He's helped them very much. The Mashal, Art Scroll, the Hebrew and the English, he helped them a lot, and others. Now, he has very chashav askamas from the Gedolim about it. Mashal Rabbi Chaim Sefer says whatever you said over there in a particular sugya is nifla. Okay, but Kitzer, he's one of, in different masechtas we see there's someone that becomes like the expert. He's one of them in understanding the Metzias, but the Sefer, it's not only just pictures; it deals with in depth. A lot of times in understanding, showing a tremendous havana in the sugya with the Rishayim and Achrayim also. Another Yid, a great gadol in America, who helped bring to the understanding of Masechta to the masses, was Rabbi Yisrael Belsky. He's a very busy person, involved with all different things, and also Rosh Hashiva, a Paisik. But many years ago, he used to give shir, smicha shir, Chulin, and everything, and he made a video. And he taught many different people, live, hands-on, all different aspects of the Inyana of Masechtas Chulin. And he also, in general, was an expert in all different areas in the sciences to show that understanding the Metzias, he was a very big believer that you need to know the Metzias, and that helps greatly in understanding the Masechta and the halachas and all the issues. Now, he had a Talmud, Rav Lachs, who put out a book, Chulin Illuminated, which is available in English and now just came out in Hebrew, who also learned by him a lot. He also spent with gorgeous color pictures. Some are gory for some people, but the point is, these works became this and the Sichas Chulin. These are the classic go-to svarim when you're learning and you need to understand anything what's going on. He sat by Rebelsky. Rebelsky went through the Sefer very carefully. The Sefer, the Sichas Chulin. The author also helped him a lot, and then now what happens is that these two people, as I said, they work with the Art Scroll. So Art Scroll Shas is one of the most used Shas. It's very, besides for the actual translation, whether you're in Hebrew you need it, you use it in English. The point is that it plays a tremendous role in helping, and they are based off of the materials of these Rebelsky, Rav Lachs, and the Sichas Chulin. Now, there's also to mention Professor Zohar Amar, who's worked on a lot of these type of topics and written lots of books, and his work on Messiah Sa'if and all different types of things, also very important. The kids, the point I'm trying to bring out is visual aid and these type of things is very important for the Masechta. Okay, now there are videos out there. Mitzvah Shem, all DAF hopes to release all different types of things to help the Loimdim out there as they learn, because as I said again, understanding the Metzias is beyond important. One cannot illustrate it enough. Okay, now, just to mention one more sefer that just mamish hot off the press. I don't know when it's arriving to America. It just came off from the printer from a Ravram Wright, who he's also someone who's very involved with the Metzias. On All Daf there was many interviews, I believe, with Chalitza and some with Shaifer. So he has a book. It's called the Ushachatem Bazeh, the Chulin and Shchita Companion. And this is an excellent work because he's making it simple for the regular person. You want to be able to, you're not interested in the 6 million footnotes and to know every single thing, but he takes you into, from the knife, every aspect, all the different questions, the mitzvah shchita, the kosher animals, the knives, the snows, how you make it, how do you prepare the knife, everything with beautiful pictures. He goes to all aspects of the thing, with including all aspects of shchita, with pictures. He also is a yid who spent a lot of time speaking to all the different people, and velta very valuable information in this sefer with a glossary. A lot of times you learn the Masechta, you want to have just quickly, what does the word even mean? And quickly, you just open up these books, picture, and you can understand it very easily. So this is also a brand new book that should be available in America soon. Okay, now, especially one parak over here in this Masechta, which is considered extremely hard. I can't speak about it from experience, is Elotrefus. This is, again, a parak that the Metzias is beyond important. Already way back, there's a chashuva work from a Rav Katzenellenbeigen, a very interesting person. He wrote his autobiographical accounts. Also, he learned in yeshivas and whatever, but people use it. As a matter of fact, I even saw that Rav Lax quotes it in his book, in his footnotes. Okay, now, Art Scroll in this parak, again, they give thanks to all these different people that helped them, and also they even give thanks to Renas and Slifkin, who helped them at the time because in this parak there's a lot of different aspects of animals that you need to understand, and for his expertise and his help about it. Okay, now this leads us to one last aspect, is the simanim of the simanim of the behemoths and ifas, which also plays out in this masechta. There's a few sugyas about it. This is a beyond hot topic until today, and the amount of knowledge in science, it's a very hot topic in general, which relates to the general knowledge of Chazal and how we mityaches to Chazal and science, what the Chazal know about science, ein l'davar soif, how much is written about it. Again, the Sefer Sichas Chulin, Nagdama, he has a few pages about it, but that's not the main point of the Sefer at all. He talks about it. L'mashal, there was a tremendous chashuv Talmud Chacham before the war, Rabbi Kasil Kemelhar. He wrote a whole Sefer dealing with the sciences of Chazal. And this is a topic on its own. Forget about Masechtas Chulin, is its own right now. But even when you talk about Masechtas Chulin, this plays out unbelievable amount of times. L'mashal, just in recent years, the past 10 years, the Barkel chickens, ein l'davar soif, how much literature is written about it. This is already when the internet began. It was already well into its thing. So there was this forums, there's pages and pages and booklets, and this Rav and that Rav and every saying, and whole svarim are written on this topic already. And again, because of this, a lot of the other chickens and birds and everything, Messiah questions, and this plays out roles in other aspects of halacha, tons of literature written on it. Some of them very, very valuable, and it plays out in other areas of halacha too. Now, the turkey and the daga shrill and endless. Just this week, Chuvas Ramar Trebenet came out. This was a pulmus nifl in the time of the night Yehuda Ramar Trebenet. So in this new Chuvas Sefer, this new version of Chuvas Sefer, again, tons of material about this pulmus. L'mashal, how to figure out the animals, the Messiah on the animals. So just now, Rabbi Sadia Goyen came out on Chumash Vayikra, which is also plays out a role in how he's mefarish the different animals, what's kosher and not. Ein l'davar soif, what's going on in this Masechta, how relevant it is. Okay, so now, we're going to just spend a few minutes to go through how was this Masechta learned, which is something, was it learned in yeshivas? So the answer is, it clearly was, because it was very relevant. It was very relevant. That's first of all. Before anything, it's clear, Ga'ainim, Rishainim, Achrainim, they learned it. Fine. The only thing is, it sounds like at a certain point in time, Chulin stopped learning. L'mashal, today it's not part of a yeshiva cycle, and probably has to do with because the fear of it's too halachadik and it's too talim the so they veered away from it. But I'm not sure. More obviously needs to be discussed about it. But l'mashal, the yeshivas of the Ramon and Marshal, we know we have the Amsha Shloimeh and Chulin, beyond important. We have anyone needed to be a Rav. Anyone needed to be, even if you weren't going to be a Rav, being a Sheikh, so it was relevant in those days. Even the generations later, the Teres Chaim, the Marsha, the Maram, they write, their Svarim are written with Talmidim. There's tons of, on the whole Masechta, the Maram, the Marsha, the Teres Chaim. Even going on later on, in Valaj and Lamashal 1873, we have the Netziv's work on all of Chulin. It says it was written in 1873. We know that they learned. Lamashal, the Ksav Sefer, the son of the Chassam Sefer, the great Ksav Sefer, he published a Sefer right before World War II, long after he was Nifter, on Masechtas Chulin. It comes out, Reb Zevin in his beautiful write-up about the Sefer says, that they basically learned Chulin for 5 years in the yeshiva. Now, obviously, this gets into how they used to learn in Hungary. They didn't just learn every blot. It was called, they also learned sugyas, so anything that was relevant, they ended up learning half a kol terakula through it. Okay, anyway, now, but the point is that even we have in 1920s in tells that people would learn paiskim, what was called late at night. Okay, whatever. We're not here to map out every single aspect of this Masechta, how it was learned, but it's clear it was learned. Okay, now, and what the shift was about, why it got removed, so to speak. Now, like we've discussed in the past, the nusach of the Talmud, so we always mention the Tukei Seifrim. So here, finally, it comes to an end. He was working on it. I even have a letter that I'm about to publish in a work of mine very soon, where he's talking about Masechtas Chulin, that he's mamish holding towards the end. But Lamaisi, he wasn't able to publish it. And Rav Chanoi Cherentroy, the great Rav Chanoi Cherentroy, he published it for him, publishing it, and this was the last volume published based on the works of Rabbi Novich. Okay. Now, moving on to the Ga'inim, so we have a Yid Rav Zaini alive today, put out a massive work of Ga'inic material on the Masechta. We have a Hilchah Shchita from Rav Sadia Gaon, Rachmiel Brody published such a small work. We have other materials that relate to Hilchas Treifas, early works. We have work relating from Eldad Adani, all these different things. We have a lot of early works relating to Hilchah Shchita. Now, That's actual Masechta. We have the Ramban, which was published many different times, and the complete manuscript was published by Rav Reichman, and at the time we quoted. One time I spoke about this this incredible thing that there's a haskama from different gedolim about the chashivas of the sefer having the Ramban on the Masechta, and it's a ganze big sefer. And Rabbi Zal Meltzer writes that he was zeicha to. He published it beforehand and not complete, but he had all different chashashos about certain things in the Ksav Yad, and he says he thinks this should be. And turns out he was right. After the fuller manuscript was published, he saw that he was right. He mentions this in the Haskama of this sefer for the Reichman edition. Now, it's interesting is that the Chida, who I'm always fond of quoting, his list of the different Sfarim in the Masechta, he quotes that there's a Rashba, a Ritva, Ran. He doesn't even mention that there's a Ramban, and that we know is the source of it all. Okay, because there's a Ritva, Rajva, Ramban, there's the Taisis Rush, and then learning through Rabbi Menachem Dilianzo's Sefer Ar HaTorah, which is on the Messiah, we see that there was a work from Rabbi Avram Nahar, which is famous in Masechtas Nedarim, Nazir, and other Masechtas. So it seems on Chulin, and does it exist? Answer is yes. Rabbi Shoshana, in an article on Mayan, publishes a few pieces, and supposedly he's been working on it for many years. It's supposed to come out. Amir Tzashem, we hope it will come out. There's a work from Rabbi Mandri, and then in recent years, a Gans Chashava volume called Shita Mikubetzes from Rabbi Tzal Ashkenazi comes out in Masechtas Chulin. Now, besides for we're talking about over here of all types of pulmusin and halacha pulmusin of kashrus, here becomes a pulmus about the actual sefer. It's published by Mechon Ofek, which is Rabbi Shoshana, and also by Havet Shalom Rabbi Akiva. This is a din Torah, and this relates to dinim of who has rights to a sefer beyond the scope of this year. Now, okay, so these are plenty of Rishonim that we have. Chulin also, we have the Miri. Fine. So a kid say one wants to learn Chulin just with the Rishonim, you have your work cut out for you. But the problem is, to make it more, is there's halachic chiburim of Rishonim. The Tyrus Abayis, the Rajban, the Ra, they go at it. You have materials of the Ravid. Okay, now then we have other works. I'm just going to mention their names. I'm not going to mention all the significance and all the stories behind it. There's the Shari Dura, there's Isser Heter V'Aruch, who wrote this of Aruch, but this becomes the one of the go-to svarim. So to the Shari Dura, it's also the go-to sefer. Dozens of Gedolim sat and learned it, gave shir over the generations on it. So there's multiple works on it, where Gedolim write their psakim, most notably the Ramah, there's the Marshal, there's the Sefer Shchitas Ubedikas of the Marivail. Endless amount in recent years. Some put out 37 Perushim that are written throughout the generations of the Marivail's Shchitas Ubedikas, and it's probably much more. Okay, now, but Kitzer, the point is that since this Masechta was so relevant, it was mamish learned. And this is only in the early years. You move on, you have the Yamsha Shleima, which we know the greatness, the Marshal was one of the greatest of all time, Achronim, and he writes out, Barichos and Zagdama, the importance of this Masechta. This Masechta is so relevant, and why it's so relevant, and he basically learns it, checks up everything. Moving on, we have the Taras Chaim, we have a chibur called the Domestic Eliezer. This was a very rare work. Many people did not have it. Most people that had it used it because the Knesset Gdoila, who was legendary for having a Chashav library, had it. Rabbi Ephraim Zal Margolis later on says that he was zeicha somehow to get a copy. We have the Be'er Sheva, which we spoke about in other Masechtas. We have a few prakim from him on this Masechta. We have the Pnei Yeshua in the first parak. Okay, now moving on, we have the Rosh Yosef, the Pri Megadim. So not only do we have in Yeridea, we have this Chashav Sefer, Sayin Lamda, Sayin Halacha from the Pri Megadim. We also have a Sefer on Chas of his, on Masechtas Chulin. It's one of the Masechtas, ish that requires a lot to discuss about him. Now, there's a chibur on Chulin called the Leiv Aryeh, which Rabbi Ephraim Zal Margolis knew him personally, writes about him beautifully in his Askama about him. So that's another early Achron about it. And then we mentioned already there's the Ksav Sefer, and earlier the Feres Yaakov, which we spoke about. There's a lot to talk about him also. Fine. Moving later on, getting closer to World War II, there's the Daravi, and everyone loves to talk about the Daravi Bechlal and his famous Hagdama. He says all different types of interesting things. Okay. But Kitzer, the point is, this is some of the way the Achronish Svarim that are on this Masechta. Now, just as I said, this Masechta, and I spoke with the Rishonim also, there's a lot of going ons in the world of halacha. Just as time is short, we're just going to mention a few more, 3-4 more minutes, and that's it for now. And that's as follows. One is, there's an interesting work called Zichron Yosef, published in the early 1700s. Now, this sefer is a Be'indika sefer on Hilchos Shchita, but it's also a Welt of Musar through, he starts, we say every simon, he starts talking about the halachas of Shchita, and then somehow he gets into all different aspects of Musar. An interesting edition of this came out with Ha'aros from Martha Gross a few years ago, but it's only half the Sefer, but very valuable footnotes. He gave share on it, okay? Obviously, makes sense why he would want to publish such a Sefer. Now, moving on, there's endless literature of Svarim on different aspects of the Masechta. Just we have the Teres Chatas L'Ramah that sparked lots of literature on that. We have the Vikuach Maim Chaim from his Chavrusa, the brother of the Maral, where they go at it already in the Hagdama, where he vehemently argues on a lot of the method of the psak of the Ramah and the Sefer Teres Chatas, which ends up being the makar for how the Ramah paskins inside Darkei Moshe, inside Shulchan Aruch. So this is, we have at head Talmidim of the great Reb Shachni Goin, the Rebbe of the Ramah and Reb Chaim Nachi Maral, and they're in this sefer talking about it. It was so sharp that in the earlier editions of the Vikuach Maim Chaim, they took it out because they felt it's too sharp. But the rest of the sefer is there. But Lamaisa today it's available. The Shalom Meishav Chibron, which is also available, and there's numerous different svarim on the halachas. Just mention 5 or 6, and then we'll conclude. And that is as follows: there's the Pri Chadash and the Pri Tayar. Go at it. There's the Kresi Uplasi. This is Tyrus Yukasil. We have the Chachmas Adam, a beyond important work for halacha. This was the go-to sefer for many people, for people just to learn the halacha quickly. We have the earlier work, Tfuah Shar. We have Rabbi Chaim Zalman's masterpiece in Hilchos Treifus, also dealing with the Tfuah Shvar. The Tfuah Shar, each one of these svarim sparked their own kitzurim and all different types. We have the Aruch HaShulchan many years later when it came out. It was a mapech in the world of halacha. And there are endless different svarim throughout the years that were published on these noisim, as these were very important. Every Rav had to be a master in these topics. And so not only on Yeridea is there Velta literature, but on all the different noisim in Yeridea, and there's many, many multiple different stories that need to be told and hopefully will be told over time. And it's possible I'm going to be attempting over the next few months, as Daf Yomi learns Chulin, to have many different short clips about the stories of all these many different svarim and the literature about them and some of the pulmas in them. Not necessarily long episodes, a bunch of short episodes, what the story behind them are, who these people were, because it's a fascinating Masechta. There's just so much out there. And I feel that in just this introduction episode, we will not be able to get to it. So in short, focus on all the different things about this heavily loaded Masechta. And I wish everyone Matzlacha to be able to understand and learn this Masechta and implement it in their day-to-day lives also.
Thank you. Incredible. Looking forward to everything else that you're going to share about the Masechta.